I want to start this video by first and foremost saying I am not in support of colonialism at all. Colonialism was bad, is bad, and continues to have a negative effect on the world today. Colonialism was rooted in economic exploitation and blatant racism. I need to start by saying I am not in support of it, but hear me out on this. It had an interesting effect on people's culture and cuisine. Over the weekend, I had Vietnamese food, and while I had a lot of Vietnamese food recently, this particular location served Vietnamese iced coffee. It's been years since I last had a glass, and I remember it being amazing. If you're an avid coffee drinker, never go to your grave without at least having a glass. I was trying to convince my friends to get a glass because it's absolutely phenomenal, and even if you're not into coffee, there was also Thai iced tea on the menu, which I also swear by. They got a Nest tea. More important than taste, I find Vietnamese iced coffee fascinating because it's an interesting mix of local culture and colonialism. Here's how it works. They give you a glass with condensed milk at the bottom and Robusta coffee at the top. Robusta coffee has a much higher caffeine content than Arabica, but it's also much stronger and more bitter. Once the coffee has been brewed, mix the milk in with the coffee, pour it over ice, and enjoy. It's an amazing drink, and yet, it's the product of colonialism. Without colonialism, we wouldn't have Vietnamese iced coffee. The ingredients for Vietnamese iced coffee, Robusta coffee, and condensed milk were brought in by the European colonists. And despite the fact that French colonists were the ones responsible for it, no one thinks of Vietnamese iced coffee as French. This is what I find so fascinating about Vietnamese iced coffee. It's not Viet or Asian in origin, yet it's a part of Vietnamese culture and cuisine. I am no stranger to this. I am the child of Hong Kong immigrants. Hong Kong was a British colony for 150 years. And what is Hong Kong's national drink? Milk tea. Tea mixed with milk, and the tea is not traditional Chinese herbal tea, but Ceylon tea from Sri Lanka, a British colony. The practice of afternoon tea was brought in by the British colonists and became popular in Hong Kong culture. Again, an interesting mix of colonialism with local culture. And while distinctly British in origin, no one thinks of Hong Kong milk tea as British, but distinctly a part of Hong Kong culture. I happen to have a lot of colleagues who are Southeast Asian who have been telling me about these dishes. And while I knew about Vietnamese iced coffee and Hong Kong milk tea for a long time now, it's incredibly fascinating to hear them describe dishes that they like that are products of colonialism, but which they have basically completely claimed the identity of. Their identities aren't colonial in nature, but rather they've taken those identities. They seized them. They've captured them. Those dishes are theirs now. Again, and I really need to say this, but I am not for colonialism. I am not saying it was a good thing. I'm not saying that every place that was colonized had wonderful culinary creations created by this. All I really wanted to talk about was, every time I have a glass of Vietnamese iced coffee, or Hong Kong milk tea, even though I don't really drink that very often, it reminds me of that very interesting history. History that's messy, and also, bizarrely, sweet. Future Enoch, I'll see you next week.